Investing is an art of turning money from 1 to 2, or turning money from 1,000 naira to 2,000 naira. What we simply mean by this is that you have actually increased the amount of money from a particular point to another point. That is what the intricacies of investment or investing is all about. To become a successful investor, you need to know the difference between asset and liability. This is very important. Asset is actually something that puts money in your pocket, while liability is something that takes money from the pockets. So from this explanation, you can see that there is a clear distinction between liability and the asset. The question is, as a rational human being, which one will you choose? Will you choose asset over liability, or you choose liability over assets? Clothes, vacations, expensive cars are all liabilities, and stocks, rental estates or rental properties, and dividends are all assets. Everybody wants to be rich, but not everybody knows the condition attached to wealth or being wealthy. Everybody wants to be rich by buying expensive clothes, driving expensive cars, and living in expensive apartments. To achieve this kind of a lifestyle, which is sometimes very difficult and cumbersome, a lot of people prefer to go into the tsunami of debt. They prefer to go deeply in debt just to impress their neighbor, just to impress their friends, just to impress people around them, and give an impression that they are actually very rich. They look rich in liabilities, of course, but in assets they are not rich. The rich people or rich individuals actually spend money on assets and not liabilities. They spend money on things that can actually create value for them, and not things that will not create value for them. They spend money on things that will them to have what I call financial independence. But for the average man or for the lower class, they spend money to impress other people, and in most cases they earn the money and they spend the money. I am not here to dispute the fact that buying liabilities are not good. Of course, buying liability or liabilities are very good, but on the other hand, you need to understand that you must buy asset first, and that asset should be able to fund your liabilities, because over time, with your consistency and pragmatism and your resiliency, there is every possibility, 99.9%, that when you buy this asset over time, your asset will be able to afford you the kind of lifestyle you want at the end of the day. In other words, your asset should be able to buy your liabilities. In this video, I am going to be talking about the step-by-step guide to wealth, so that you can be able to follow this step-by-step guide, and at the end of the day, you can achieve your whims and caprices. You can achieve that dream that you have always wanted. Now, one of the steps or guide to wealth creation is, number one, you need to have what I call investing plan. Before buying your assets, you need to know the kind of investor you want to be. Do you want to be an active investor or a passive investor? Now, let me quickly differentiate between an active investor and a passive investor. When you say an individual is an active investor, it means that that individual spend more time on research and the market trend. In other words, an individual that is an active investor has an idea, has the knowledge, is well grounded in what I call financial education. He knows the secrets, he knows the dynamics, he knows the intricacies, he knows how the market actually operates as an active investor. But on the other hand, when you say that an individual is a passive investor, it means that that individual does not spend more time on research and the market trend. That is, his level of financial education is not as high as an individual that takes time, his energy and everything to know how the market actually operates. In other words, a passive investor will actually give his money to a portfolio investment manager to manage for him at the end of the day, as opposed to an active investor that is actively involved in the market activities. That is number one. Number two, an active investor has what I call higher risk and higher returns when it comes to investment. But a passive investor has a lower risk and has what I call a lower return on his investment. The reason is that as a passive investor, there is a percentage that is allocated to him as an interest, as a return at the end of every financial year. It might be 23%, it might be 20%, it might be 15%, it might be 10%, depending on what is actually investing his money into, either ETFs or whatsoever. So it actually depends on what that individual is actually investing his money into. As a passive investor, you could invest your money into what I call ETFs, which is equity trust fund. You could invest your money into mutual funds. You could also invest your money into index funds, or you can also invest your money into car funds, or you can invest your money into what I call real estate or syndicated dealing. Now, some people will ask me, what is syndicated dealing? What we are saying here is that you actually bring your money into the business, and at the end of the day, you are actually allocated some amount of money as a return on investment at a particular period of time. As a passive investor, your investment is managed by who I call a portfolio investment manager, who is actually a professional. At the end of the day, you are given some percentage as a return on your investment. I, for one, am actually investing my money in what I call mutual funds, and under that mutual funds, I invest into what I call money market funds, where I get money on daily basis. The amount of money you actually get will be dependent on what you actually invest into the portfolio platform or portfolio investment. As an active investor, also, you could invest into stocks, you could invest into rental estate or real estate, you can invest into businesses, you can invest into startups, and you can also invest into what I call commodities. And when you're talking about commodities, you're talking about either gold or silver or all those commodities out there that you can actually invest your money into. Number two step-by-step guide to wealth creation is what I call, how do you want to get paid? You could get paid through what I call cash flow, or you could get paid through what I call appreciation. Under cash flow, you get paid on every month or every 3 months or on yearly basis. That is what we mean by a cash flow. So when you say a cash flow, you are getting paid on regular basis. That regular basis can be every month, can be 3 months, can be 6 months, or can be every year, or even 9 months. Under appreciation, it is quite different. When you say appreciation, it means that you buy with the hope that the asset which you have actually purchased can actually go up in their value. So appreciation and cash flow, they are never the same thing, but there are various means of having return on the investment. Number 3 step or guide to wealth creation is that you need to understand the kind of asset you want to invest into. The amount that you want to use to invest into your investment portfolio can actually vary, either as a passive investor or as an active investor. If you are a passive investor, the amount might be a bit lower because the amount actually varies. Don't forget, I said you could invest into equity trust funds, you could invest into what I call mutual funds, and under each of them, there is actually a particular amount of money that you can actually invest your money into. Under mutual funds, under money market funds, the amount is actually between the range of 5,000 and 10,000 naira. That is the minimum amount of money you can put into that investment portfolio is between 5,000 and 10,000 naira. If you put above that, it doesn't matter. There is no restriction on the amount of money you can actually put into what I call a money market fund. But as an active investor, the amount of money you actually put into that investment might be a bit higher, most especially when we are talking about in the areas of real estate or rental estate. It actually involves a lot of money. Number 2, if you're talking about starting a business of your own, it can go up a lot of money. Number 3, if you intend to buy a business or a startup, it can actually involve a lot of money. Number 4, if you intend to buy commodities, it might also involve a lot of money. So as an active investor, you spend more, but as a passive investor, you spend less at the end of the day. So the amount actually varies and they are never the same. Number 4 step-by-step guide to wealth creation is how to execute your investments. You need to find a platform that will allow you to invest your money passively or actively. To execute, you must always be buying, or you must always be investing your money, and that's why we call it a decade of sacrifice. The more you buy, the more money you make. The more you buy, the more richer you become. The more you buy, the more wealthy you become. The more you buy, the more the tendency for you to have what I call financial independence. Because the purpose or the reasons why we invest our money is to be able to afford our liabilities in the future that ordinarily we have actually denied ourselves over the years through a decade of sacrifice. And when you actually invest this money over time, your money begins to compound. And when your money actually begins to compound, it means that you cannot afford those things that ordinarily you have decided not to buy in the first place. You can afford to go on vacation, you can afford to buy your house, you can afford to buy your cars, you can afford to have what I call financial independence. So you need to keep buying. You must also set up a system to invest your money on regular basis, either as a passive investor or as an active investor. In other words, you can ask your bank to you can give your bank the permission to automatically split your money every financial month. They can split the money and that money will automatically go to your investment without necessarily bothering yourself, because you have actually mandated your bank to do the necessary. Number 5 step-by-step guide to wealth creation is that you need to amplify the process. You need to amplify the process means that you need to stimulate the process. You need to be resilient. You need to be pragmatic. You need to be determined, and you need to be focused. For you to be pragmatic, for you to be resilient, and for you to be determined and focused, you need what I call financial education. It means that your level of education have actually gone up. In other words, you do a lot of research. In other words, you read a lot of books. In other words, you listen to podcasts, or you watch podcasts, or you watch videos on YouTube, or you read a lot of books on personal management, on leadership, on wealth creation, on money creation, and money management, and the rest of them. So you need financial education in this present economic dispensation for you to be able to survive in this harsh economic situation that is characterized by high level of inflation. You need financial education. Financial education will actually let you know that when you get your money, you don't need to spend your money immediately. When you get your money, you need to split your money into 3 parts, or systemize your money into spending, saving, and investment. When you make that money, you don't need to spend that money, because at the end of the day, if you spend that money, you are actually reaching your future at the present. So if care is not taken, you are actually going to find yourself in the financial danger zone where most people are in today, because they fail to plan themselves very well. So when you systemize your money, you give some certain percentage of your money to savings, which is for emergency. You give some certain part of your money to investment, which is for your future. Then you give some certain amount of money for your miscellaneous, which you spend on every day. Financial education is very crucial, so you must form the habit of reading more on financial education, books on financial education. You must invest more on buying those books, or reading them online, or watching podcasts, or watching videos, on the podcast on how you can actually build their wealth. This will actually help you to get better and change your financial trajectory. I could imagine some years back, when I did not have this financial education, I was actually, buying cars. I had 2 cars at that time. I had a Quest and I had a Toyota Celica, a sport car. But when I realized that buying car is not actually the medium to wealth creation, it's actually the liability, I had to change my orientation, and I began to make research, and I began to build up my financial education. And today, I've been able to create more money for myself and build a very strong financial future for myself. So the future is very great if you are actually investing your money. The future is it's going to be very wonderful. You're going to have financial independence. You're going to have financial freedom, where you have nothing to worry about when it comes to the issue of money. Remember, one day you're going to get old. Remember, one day you will not be able to move your body like you used to do when you were 30, 20, or 40 years old. At that time, you are now going very old. So how do you want to live that life when you are going very old? Because old age is very expensive. Old age is very exorbitant. So you need to prepare for the future. And the future is going to be very great when you actually start investing today. It is not yet too late. You can start investing today. Don't forget, it's a decade of sacrifice. The more you put your money, the more money you make at the end of the day. I hope you have actually gained something in this video on step-by-step guide to building wealth, on step-by-step guide to wealth creation. For me, I've actually gained a lot, and I believe you have actually gained a lot too. If you have gained something from this video, now is the time for you to share this video. Click on that subscription, and don't forget to subscribe and share the video, and also leave your comment, and don't forget also to click on the like button. Till I see you next time, thank you so much, and God bless you. Bye bye.